It was a cold winter night in a quiet suburban town in the United States. The streets were empty, the houses dimly lit, and a soft layer of snow covered the sidewalks. Inside a small, cozy home at the end of a cul-de-sac, Eleanor sat alone in her recliner, sipping tea as she stared at the flickering fireplace. Life had been lonely since her husband passed away, and though she had long grown accustomed to the silence, tonight felt different. A sudden scratching sound at the door startled her. Then came a faint, desperate meow. Eleanor furrowed her brows and set her cup down. She wasn't expecting visitors, especially not at this hour. When she slowly opened the door, the freezing air rushed in, and there, sitting on the snowy porch, was an old, scruffy cat she had never seen before. But what caught her attention the most was a small bundle it carried delicately in its mouth. Her heart pounded as she knelt down. The cat, exhausted and shivering, looked up at her with pleading eyes. Eleanor hesitated before carefully taking the bundle from the cat's mouth. Wrapped inside a tattered cloth was something astonishing, a newborn baby. Tears welled up in her eyes as she gasped. Who would abandon a baby in such harsh weather? And how did this frail cat manage to bring it to safety? The child was cold, but miraculously still breathing. Without wasting another second, Eleanor rushed inside, wrapped the baby in warm blankets, and called 911. The paramedics arrived quickly, along with the police. They were baffled by Eleanor's story. The officers searched the area, but there was no sign of where the baby had come from. The only clue they had was a cat, who, despite its weak state, seemed determined to stay by the infant's side. Word spread quickly, and soon the small town was buzzing with curiosity and awe. News channels covered the story, calling it a miracle rescue. The hospital staff who took in the baby claimed that if it hadn't been for the cat's intervention, the child wouldn't have survived the night. Meanwhile, Eleanor took the cat in, naming it Guardian. She nursed it back to health, and for the first time in years, she didn't feel alone. The two had formed an unbreakable bond. Days later, the police uncovered a shocking revelation. Security footage from a nearby alley showed a distressed young woman leaving the baby behind in an old cardboard box. She had been homeless, struggling to survive, and in a moment of desperation, made the painful decision to part with her child. But what stunned everyone was what happened next. The very same cat had been watching from the shadows. The moment the woman left, the cat carefully approached the box, sniffed around, and after a few moments, gently picked up the baby and began its journey in search of help. The footage left the entire town in tears. Authorities soon located the mother, a young woman named Sarah, who was overwhelmed with guilt and fear. But when she learned how her baby had been saved, she broke down in gratitude. With the community's support, Sarah was given shelter, counseling, and the opportunity to rebuild her life. As for Guardian, the heroic feline became a town legend. People visited Eleanor's home just to see the remarkable cat who had saved a life. Eleanor, once lonely and longing for purpose, now found herself surrounded by warmth and love, all thanks to a cat who had changed everything. But then, something even more mysterious happened. One night, Eleanor awoke to find Guardian sitting by the window, staring outside as if waiting for someone. Its tail flicked anxiously. Curious, Eleanor followed its gaze. Across the street, a shadow moved beneath the dim glow of a street lamp. It was a woman, Sarah. She was pacing back and forth, looking distressed. Eleanor quickly put on her coat and stepped outside. "Sarah?" she called. Sarah turned abruptly, her face pale. I think someone's been watching me," she whispered, ever since the news story aired. Eleanor's stomach tightened. The thought of someone lurking around sent shivers down her spine. Guardian let out a low, warning growl. The next morning, Eleanor found strange footprints in the snow outside her house. They didn't belong to her or Sarah. Someone had been there, watching. That evening, she double-checked the locks on her doors and windows. But deep down, she knew Guardian was already on high alert. A few nights later, Eleanor heard it again, the scratching at the door. But this time, when she opened it, Guardian didn't meow. Instead, it bolted outside into the darkness. Heart racing, Eleanor grabbed a flashlight and followed. The cat led her through the back alleyways of the town, its eyes locked onto something ahead. Finally, it stopped and crouched low, growling at a figure hiding behind a dumpster. "Who's there?" Eleanor called, her voice firm despite her fear. A tall man slowly stepped into the light. His clothes were ragged, and his face was partially obscured by a hood. He looked desperate, but there was something in his eyes. Guilt, regret. I was the one who left the baby," he confessed. "I'm the father." Eleanor's breath caught. "Why?" Tears welled in his eyes. "We had no choice. We were homeless, struggling. Sarah and I thought maybe someone would find her and give her a better life." Guardian remained at Eleanor's side, watching him closely, as if judging his sincerity. The man took a deep breath. "I've been trying to see if she's okay. I didn't mean to scare anyone." Eleanor exhaled slowly, the tension easing. She saw the anguish in his face, the same pain Sarah had carried. "You should see her," Eleanor said softly. "You both deserve a second chance." And so, with Guardian as her silent protector, Sarah and the man, Daniel, were reunited. It wasn't easy, but with the help of Eleanor and the community, they slowly began rebuilding their lives. One evening, as Eleanor sat on her porch, Guardian curled up beside her. The setting sun painted the sky in hues of orange and pink. Sarah, now working at a local cafe and slowly piecing her life back together, walked up the pathway with her baby in her arms. Daniel followed closely, his eyes filled with gratitude. "I wanted to thank you again," Sarah said, her voice trembling with emotion. "Not just for saving my child, but for giving us a second chance." Eleanor reached out, gently touching the baby's tiny hand. "It wasn't me," she whispered, looking down at Guardian, who blinked knowingly. "It was him." The cat let out a soft purr, as if understanding the significance of that moment. From that day forward, the five of them, Eleanor, Sarah, Daniel, the baby, and Guardian, became an unlikely family, bound by fate, an extraordinary act of a small, old cat who had changed everything. Some said it was fate. Others called it a miracle. But one thing was certain. Guardian had not only saved a baby that night, but it also brought hope and healing to those who needed it most. And for Eleanor, that old cat's meow at the door was the beginning of a beautiful new chapter in her life.